The hardest thing about these morning sessions is the mobility, especially now that it's cold, it's rainy, it's windy. It's like 5 degrees in here right now, and it's like 4:30 in the morning. So everything is aligned against me to have any sort of mobility in the morning, especially front squats. The way I squat, front squat is not, the most straightforward thing for me. And so add all those other elements into it, and it's a recipe for a frustrating, hard session. But these Hindu squats, or just high rep squats in general, getting the blood into the muscle, especially the quads, the hip flexors, glutes, all of that kind of just loosens you up. There's nothing worse than going straight to the bar when it's like this and you just don't have any mobility at all. Shoulders are stiff, everything's stiff, like you just locked up, and you have to get ATG with the front squat. It's just very, very difficult. But this morning I decided to just go straight into Hindu squats. I did 5 sets of 30. Those sets can be the actual session as well. Like it's hard work, it's a lot of repetitions, and it feels good. Like as I said, like a week ago now, or 2 weeks ago, whenever I started these high reps, probably even 3 weeks ago now. Man, time flies. High reps feel good when it's really cold. I don't know what it is about it. It just kind of makes sense to do high repetitions during winter. You feel good. If I was doing, low reps, high weight here, it would be a frustrating, miserable existence. You're freezing in between the sets, you're freezing during the sets. But with this, I walked out, it was 5 degrees, it's freezing. I'm all laid up and everything with 50 jumpers and thick, pants and all that stuff. But after a few sets of Hindu squats, I warmed up, and it started being a pleasant experience to be up at 4:30 in the morning training on a cold, windy morning. So did that, and went straight to front squats and worked up to 150. Now, doing front squats every day, it's hard for many reasons, like I said, but it's also hard because I've got bruising all across my anterior delts, my clavicles, my collarbones, and now, ever since I hit that 175 front squat, I've got pain through my hand, because when the bar rolled forward, a lot of that weight ended up in my hand, and so it stretched the living hell out of my hand, my wrist, and all that. So it's kind of like feeling a little bit, it doesn't hurt or anything, but when I go back into that front rack position, it kind of feels a little off. So before I actually started recording this morning, I started playing around I did a bit of bicep curls, then I thought about, I don't know if I'd even describe this thing, I didn't record it. If you just picture a dowel, a wooden dowel, and a string attached to a small little 2.5 kilo plate, and you just kind of like twist this dowel, wooden dowel, and it's kind of like a motorbike handle. I don't know how else to explain it. And you kind of like, wind the string up with the weight attached, and you kind of go back. I thought about setting that up, but then I realized last time I did this was like years ago, and the little rig thing that I set up with it, the string snapped, so I didn't want to mess around and waste time doing that. But I thought about, working on my forearms, and then I started playing with the grippers. I did all sorts of stuff just to get blood into the wrist, into the forearm, because I feel like if you get blood into these tissues, they're more likely to give, more likely to stretch. You just have more range of motion, and I think that's the key with the front rack. Yesterday I messed around with biceps and lats, and this morning I started playing around with forearms. These are some of the things that you have to do, I think, to loosen up some of these tissues so you can get a proper rack. The last thing you want to have is a situation where you've warmed up your knees and hips, but your elbows and your wrists and shoulders is all kind of like cold, and you're supposed to do a front squat. This is where the back squat and the front squat vary or differ. In that you need to have a warmed up upper body as well. There's an upper body requirement for you to front squat. It's not just put the thing on your back and off you go. Front squats demand the whole body to be warm and ready. So I'm kind of thinking along those lines, thinking about wrists, thinking about forearms, elbows, biceps, lats. I don't know what structure is most important for you to have a solid front rack. All I'm doing right now is basically treating what's kind of like feeling stiff and sore. And right now it's like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like right in the middle of my palm, maybe towards my thumb. I like right in there, I'm kind of like, if I push into it, like, there's a muscle there. I don't even know freaking what name it is. It's like the palm muscle. There's probably hundreds of muscles in there. It's kind of sore. It's just overstretched, sprained, whatever you want to call it. It's very, very mild. Like, it's not causing me any trouble. It's just when I get into that front rack position, it's a little bit off. So doing the grip has actually felt the best out of all the things that I tried this morning. That kind of felt really, really good, just to engage those muscles which maybe have been overstretched. But I remember, the other day, watching the Golden State Warriors, and I saw Curry kind of stretch out his, forearm flexes, and we all know Steph Curry is a really good shooter, and he's got, huge, range in his shot. He can, launch that thing from anywhere really with accuracy. But one of the things that I noticed is that he clearly works on his forearm flexes. I know that for a fact. I know when I was playing basketball, a few of the fellas that I played with trained those muscles as well. Because when you follow through, the last contact with the ball is kind of like that follow through, and that's purely a wrist flexion thing. Obviously, a lot of that power that you generate from the shot is from the legs and whatever, but the forearm kind of has an influence as well. And I kind of thought about that, and as I was doing this this morning, I thought, I wonder what Steph Curry does, like, what sort of wrist exercises exist. Maybe some of those exercises can assist me in getting a bit of a, more blood into the wrist, into the hand, into all that stuff, so, I can stretch it, even more. I know a lot of stuff that I've seen over the years about people talking about front rack mobility, flexibility. They talk about getting under the bar and doing all these stretches. You can stretch, and I'm not a somebody that's against stretching, but I always felt better when I would strengthen a particular part of the body. So if I want to have longer hamstrings, if I just do RDLs, I get better results than just doing static stretching. Static stretching has a place, don't get me wrong, but putting some blood, strengthening that tissue always had some sort of like longer lasting effects compared to just static stretching. And so stretching the wrists, like some of these structures are, I don't know, like who stretches the wrist, right? But if you were to release your forearms, if you kind of got, I don't know that I've ever trained, grip really, but if you got a little bit of, strength through the forearm, especially those wrist flexes, forearm flexes, then I reckon you'll have an easier time kind of getting under the bar. And so that's what I found, when I was doing the grippers, I felt almost like smooth like butter to get underneath, especially when it comes to the wrist. Like, it wasn't hurting me anymore, just because I kind of got blood into those muscles that yesterday caused me a bit of trouble. It's just interesting how all of this stuff that I talk about, it's kind of like a domino effect, trying to work out what I need to do to kind of feel better about, what I'm doing. The goal is front squat, but there's a lot of stuff going on. It reminds me of what Louis used to say. It's like, okay, you want to improve the front squat, but what are you doing to improve the front squat? What exercise, what accessory exercise are you doing to improve the front squat? The next step is, what are you doing to improve the exercise that improves the front squat? And so on and so on. It's kind of like you keep breaking things down until you go to the freaking, like an isolation exercise. And then you kind of, reverse engineer it. Okay, so that feeds into that feeds into that. It's kind of like that. It's as crazy as anything, but, this is how, my brain works. I don't want to work on my wrists. Like, I'll tell you straight up, like, that's not my thing. But I'm being motivated to do all of these things, so I feel better doing front squats. Because I know if I just go straight into front squats, 4:30 in the morning, 5 o'clock training session, if I just wake up cold morning and just get under the bar, it's not going to be a good existence. So what do? I'll do a bit of Hindu squats, some sort of high rep bodyweight squatting business, get the body warmed up, do some grippers, get the wrists warmed up, do some bicep curls. And then when I go to the front squat, it's like, oh, thank God, like I'm not fighting myself. Because front squats are like this elite movement. It's like the end. It's kind of like the peak of the pyramid type of movement. And so to wake up with all these bad conditions and to go straight into a boss fight, it's kind of like, I don't know. I used to make these mistakes back in the day. This is how I hurt myself, with the hip pain and whatever. But now I'm kind of like realizing, okay, let's screw the numbers, screw everything. Let's feel good doing this motion. And so this is how I come up with some of these things that I talk about. I know it sounds crazy to think about freaking wrist curls and grippers and bicep curls. Like, what the hell does that got to do with anything? But when you start thinking about these things, okay, There is a muscle in the bicep that contributes to shoulder flexion. Doing grippers releases your forearm, makes you a little bit better in the front squat, in the front rack. And so, this is how everything kind of ends up being. But these 4:30, 5 o'clock morning sessions, like, they make you think. They make me think, because I'm far away from prime strength, prime mobility. And so I have to think outside the box. All right, guys, that's it for me. Got to get out of here, go to work. Appreciate all of you guys in Patreon, comments, and Instagram. Always enjoy seeing what you guys have to say. A lot of you guys are far, far better than me and more experienced in some of these things. Like in the last week, I learned so much about the upper back, rowing, the comparisons that you guys, because a lot of you guys do the same thing as me, like experimenting, pull-ups versus rows, front squats, back squats, stances, all this sort of stuff. So I really enjoy, and I learn a lot from the comments. And I think that's one of the biggest things that keeps me coming back. It's like a forum for discussion, and I love this stuff. Love it. Anyway, guys, let me get out of here, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.